Orlando Live here at the 2013 Florida Film Festival at our first live event, and this one all about the magic behind movies and food.
Now, I would like to introduce our very special guest speaker this evening, Francine Segan. Francine has been featured in many TV specials for the History and Discovery channels and the Food Network, and is a frequent guest on shows such as The Today Show, Early Show, and CBS Sunday Morning. She has written 5 cookbooks, including Movie Menus, Shakespeare's Kitchen, and Opera Lover's Cookbook, and has been nominated for both James Beard and IACP awards. She teaches cooking at Italy, the Institute for Culinary Education, and Sarah Lawrence College. In 2011, Italy's National Association of Confectionaires named Francine the USA Ambassador for Italian desserts. Everyone, please welcome Ms. Francine Segan.
Thank you, thank you. And I already feel wonderful because I didn't trip over the wires or on the stairs. So it'll be a great night. So we're going to talk about food in film, a fantastic, interesting topic. And what I thought I would do is break it up into 2 parts. I thought the first part we'll do some stills so that I can talk about hundreds of movies. And then the second half, I'm going to show some film snippets from movies, some of my favorite foodie scenes. There'll be about 17 snippets. So throughout, what I thought would be fun, instead of me just talking, I thought we could weave in the information by me asking some questions that could become a trivia contest. And I've got prizes. So what will happen is that the wonderful volunteers on the side in red have some postcards that actually also have my website on the back, so that if you have any questions or want any recipes, you can always contact me. But it's a postcard, and when you answer a question correctly, they're going to give you a postcard. Keep them, and then you can decide if your whole table wants to combine postcards, because the number 1 winner gets the best prize, and then we have 3 other second prize winners. So now that opens up an issue. How do we figure out how you should answer the questions? Should you raise your hand like in school, or should you just shout out the answer? So what I figured I'd ask you is, what do you want? How many people, let's try with the hands. How many people would prefer a nice, raise your hand and then I'll pick on you and then you answer, versus whoever I hear answer first? So let's say, who wants raised hands? Okay, put them down. Who wants shouting, but raise your hand? Okay, so I think that in Florida, it seems as if we're organized, right? We don't want the shouting thing like I'm from New York. First of all, I could tell right away that I was different because I'm in black. We don't allow other colors in New York, so I'm already a little feeling out of it here. Plus, it was freezing when I left, and last night I got here late. It was kind of chilly, but this morning it's gorgeous. Okay, so we're going to do the raising the hands. And what will happen is I'm going to try to be always looking out at you really quickly, but sometimes I may not catch the really first hand, so we'll all be as honest as we can, including my helpers will keep their eye out and kind of indicate to me who's the person who first raised their hand. And so that's how we'll do it. Let's do a test. Let's try first. Okay, so this movie is public. Did we say the announcement about the cell phones? As long as they got cute ringers, keep them on, because we can do like a little ringer dance. So, okay, let's do a test. Okay, but the postcards count. Okay, so this is Public Enemy. Who's the actor, the male actor? Oh my gosh. How am I going to tell which hand went first? You tell me which hand went first. I think she raised her hand first. Okay. Give her a postcard. James Cagney in Public Enemy. Now, James Cagney is usually known for playing these really tough guys. And here he's being really tough, and he's squashing something in... You see, that's what I'm wondering. Shouldn't we do the calling out? The New York way, right? What do you think? Should we do the New York style? I see that you guys are polite. It's registered with us pushy New Yorkers, but I think we better do the shout out. Okay, so give her the grapefruit. Give her a postcard. And does anybody happen to know the name of the actress? Yes. Oh, that's a hard question. Are you in the business? Oh, she's going to get a lot of postcards. Let's watch out for her. Okay, so everybody knows Charlie Chaplin plays wonderful, wonderful hobo in so many great films. And so here he's sharing a bone with a dog. In what movie? I think she said it first. Everybody agree? Postcard. Okay, now here he's eating a shoe. In what movie? Yes. Postcard. No, I think the lady back there. Good. And so it's a shoe. And does anybody know what the shoe he's literally eating? Who said it in the middle? Give her you guys be in charge. I'm not even going to say. You volunteers and audience help to point for the volunteers. Yes, licorice. And what was interesting story about the licorice, Charlie Chaplin is actually was a diabetic, and they had to do 63 takes. And so he had quite a bit of licorice, and he ended up having to go to the hospital in a diabetic attack. It was sort of sad. Now here's another scene with Charlie Chaplin where he's sort of the tyranny. It's all about the tyranny of machinery. And here it's an eating machine. What's the movie? You guys help me decide. Modern Times. In the movie Arsenic and Old Lace, which is a great 1941 old movie, there are some terrific actors. Name some of these guys. Cary Grant, Peter Lorre. You're close. Yes, postcard, Raymond Massey. So, of course, Cary Grant, Peter Lorre, Raymond Massey, and the whole story is about how the ants feel sorry for the men because they don't have families, so they poison them. What is the conduit? What are they poisoning them in? Whoever said elderberry wine, in the middle, I heard it. Nice elderberry wine. Okay, this is a fun movie, a foreign film, about 4 people who decide to commit suicide by eating themselves to death. Suicide by food. Anybody know the name? I like that title, but no. I like her thinking. Okay. No? Okay, here's a hint. It stars Marcello Mastroianni. Isn't he handsome? Oh my goodness, the first stumper in Florida, Le Grand Bouffe, rented on Netflix. It was I'm not positive, but it's Le Grand Bouffe, rented. It's really cute. Okay, we all know what this movie is. No postcard. Everybody knows. This is Psycho. And of course, starring Vivien Leigh. So the question is... Janet Leigh, Vivien Leigh. Thank you. So we all know the correct answer, even though I give you these funny accidents that I make on purpose, not really. So during the shower scene, the blood, what was the food? You guys decide. No, if somebody really feels supported, give them a postcard too. Right, chocolates, Bosco. Because in these black and white films, they often use something that actually isn't red. This was also something that they discovered in black and white filmmaking, even with costumes, that some color that you needed to convey needed to be a different color than the real color to look like that color in black and white. Anyway. So The Matrix was a movie that I have to include, actually, because at the Tribeca Film Festival, Lawrence Fishburne was sitting next to me when I did a panel with Isabella Rossellini and Stanley Tucci on food in Italian film. And he was very upset because he's a real foodie. And he said, okay, when you do these talks, at least don't only do Italian, stick in The Matrix. So I asked him what questions he wanted me to ask. So first question is, the Oracle, remember the Oracle, remember The Matrix? What was she cooking? Who got it? Chocolate chip cookies. Cyber, the character that kind of turned them all in. Yes, she does a mind reader as well getting it right. So what he's talking about in the scene where he's talking to all the people that are in the Matrix, he talks about how, you know what, I don't want reality. Give me fantasy. I want to go back to just whatever it is. And he said, for example, and he's cutting into a steak, this tastes like a steak. I don't care that I'm really eating whatever, cardboard. So there are so many films that are the favorites that, you know, I have a list of 100. If actually anybody is ever interested in like the food films that are considered the most important. And there are so many. I'm going to try and touch on lots and lots of them. But I thought it'd be interesting to look at the question of what are films that sound like they have food, but they don't? Right, that's this one. What's another one that doesn't have food, but it sounds like it should have food? The Breakfast Club had the breakfast stuff, so that was kind of... Breakfast at Tiffany's was one that I was thinking of. Breakfast at Tiffany over there in the middle. Second row there is another one of those. And of course, My Dinner with Andre, which there's all this dinner and the rotating around. Now, sometimes in film, there are, wait. So sometimes in films, they have some interesting way that they use food as a kind of arc theme through it. So of course, in Kramer versus Kramer, who stars... Give him on that side. You guys decide who said it. Dustin Hoffman plays a dad, and it starts out where, you know, the mom leaves, and he has to make a meal for the kid, and it's a disaster. It's a disaster. And then as he progresses, the end of the movie ends with this kind of seamless meal that they make together. What's the food that they have at the pancakes? The pancakes at the end, just this adorable flipping and flopping of pancakes. Another film where you see the character evolve because of how they treat food is Mrs. Doubtfire, who's starring... I think down here we got one, and over there first, whoever, Mrs. Doubtfire with Robin Williams, where at first she's a dad who then dresses up like a nanny to be with her kids, but at first has to kind of buy the food and pretend, but by the end really learns how to cook, and that is just a really quick shorthand that the directors use. Just give her the whole stack of postcards. In the back, are you feeling neglected? Are you feeling neglected? And you're feeling neglected? Okay, we need, you guys on the right, pay attention to my back people and pay attention over here. Give this lady a postcard anyway, because she said some things and nobody gave her a postcard. And pay attention to the people in the back, because sometimes the sound doesn't travel as quickly. So somebody in the back, be my ears. Okay, so we're station people to listen. So of course the E.T. and the Reese's Pieces, which M&M's was still lamenting that they didn't do that product placement. And of course, Drew Barrymore, give her a postcard, and of course it stars, you just basically just shout out anything that relates. Okay, what movie? Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Decide with the volunteers who said that. And he's showing the directions to it using what food? I have to give everybody one. That was like in unison. The mashed potatoes. Okay. Well, I don't even need to say anything else, right? This is like the most famous line. This is the best. How often do we say this? Okay, so of course when Harry met Sally, and it's in a deli, and I think we've got, what? And so, considered one of the 100 most famous lines, I'll have what she's having. And the question... And Rob Reiner's mother is the actress that says it. Who? Oh, very good. Oh, give him a postcard and a half. And it's Estelle Reiner. He said it's Jack's Deli, and it's Estelle Reiner who is the actress that said it. So Aviator was a kind of fun film for a foodie to look at, and also kind of a food historian to look at, a film historian, because the director kind of portrayed also the evolution. It's a film about Howard Hughes, and it's the evolution of film too, because he kind of shows how film looked in the 20s, 30s, and 40s by some of the color techniques. It was really subtle, so subtle that some people even asked for their money back. The filmmakers thought there was a mistake, because when he was doing the films, the time period of the 20s, he made the colors funny so that green would look almost turquoise. And that was on purpose, because that's the way that the early color film looked. So it kind of went over everybody's head, but the director liked it. Who was the director? You give him whoever it was over there. You get closer. You know what? You're going to have to stand maybe in the middle there, because you haven't given out a lot of postcards. You have only 3 left? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I take it back. Now, so this is a great film for seeing what OCD is about food. Okay, there were a couple of foods that he was OCD about. What are some of the foods that Howard Hughes? Milk, over here, postcard. Green peas, he would count out the specific kinds of peas. Milk, because at some point he would only eat the milk, and just kind of compartmentalized and divided everything. Oh, movie? No, you pick one and stick with it. Godfather. Take the cannoli, leave the gun, take the cannoli is, of course, from The Godfather. The Godfather also, I'm Italian, and The Godfather also has a great scene of spaghetti sauce making, including the tip to always put a little bit of sugar in the tomato sauce and a little bit of red wine. And that's something, the very Sicilian thing to do, because the tomatoes in Sicily are so sweet that they always did that. The other thing, yes. That's not the, okay, now, Ratatouille was a great movie about food. It was all about this little rat chef, and it had a real life chef who advised the filmmakers. Does anybody know the real life chef? A real life chef from California. Over there, Thomas Keller from Per Se, a California company. And here he's making, I don't know if you can see down here, the actual ratatouille that is one of his signature dishes that he's making, and it looks, and they really copied it. I actually made it, and it comes out gorgeous. So if you want the recipe, they gave it to me. I can just email me and I can show you. This is personally one of my favorite foodie films. Oh, you guys are good. Whoever said waitress first, postcard, waitress. And it has this kind of theme of using pie, the names of pies throughout, because these waitresses in a diner have all these great pies. And I love some of the names, and I love some of the ingredients. Oops. So you can't read the top, but it's pregnant, miserable, self-pitying loser pie, which is the lumpy oatmeal. With fruitcake mashed in, which nobody likes, fruitcake, and flambe. And then, you can read that one, right? The I can't have no affair because it's wrong and I don't want Earl to kill me pie. Vanilla custard with a banana. Hold the banana. Okay, so now before I move on, I'm sorry? That's okay, I like your enthusiasm. I'm not gonna ask a question for a minute. No, for 3 minutes, I'm not going to ask any trivia questions. Although I do not want you to lose your enthusiasm, because we're going to start again with the questions with the film clips. But before we get to the film clips, I thought I would just give you a little bit of an overview of some things that directors really do look at when they're purposefully putting film and food together. And one of them is to underscore a theme, something that's a kind of overriding theme of the movie. So like for Titanic, to show class differences, where you'd really see the difference between how the first class eats and how the steerage class eats, how they eat, how they dance, play, just the differences. You see that again very nicely also in Age of Innocence, a lot of the differences. You also see it sometimes where no more. I'm not going to do any trivia questions for a minute. So with, for example, Shrek, where you you use food to just quickly, a shorthand to show the personality of a character. So, of course, Shrek is an ogre, in case you didn't notice, and he eats like one. Or in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where you've got this waspy vegetarian marrying a Greek, and he's having a whole goat on a spit. Or it can also be just used because the food is particular, or lack of food is particular to a time period, and they want to show that. So you'd have the World War II would often have either the shortages or the funny food that, because of being in the military, that you'd have. Then there's the whole fun category of food as a metaphor for sex. So, are there any children here? Do I have to be careful? No? I can just go full out? Okay, this is the R-rated portion of the evening. Pretty tame, but in Pretty Woman, what was one of the first foods she eats? Whoever said strawberries, I heard it over here. Yeah, strawberries, where she's eating strawberries, and then there's this whole moment where he thinks she's doing drugs in the bathroom, and she's really just flossing. There's also there's another food that's a cute little thing to show her personality in Pretty Woman. What's the other food? Escargot. What pancakes? That was another movie. Escargot, because the little escargot flies out of her hand, and just how she handles that. The movie Chocolat also uses food as sex very blatantly, including that it's an aphrodisiac. Tampopo, if nobody has rented that, that's another one on the must view for foodies list of showing kind of just sensual, there's a whole sensual theme going on. And of course, Tom Jones has all kinds of classic food as sex scenes. Woman on Top, and 9.5 Weeks, right? Yes. 9.5 Weeks has this one refrigerator scene that gets blood to all the right places. It's my favorite. I don't know what to do with that one. But I see you're going to have 8.5 weeks soon. A week less, but no less enticing. Okay, so now what's going to happen is we're going to go back to the trivia questions, but this time they're strange questions. So I'll ask the question. There'll be a couple of questions after the film clip. So the first clip I want to show you is something that you mentioned, Breakfast at Tiffany's. I particularly like to start with it because as a food writer, it was very disillusioning when I first went to Tiffany's. And I couldn't wait early in the morning, really hungry and wanting a New York coffee. And they don't serve breakfast. There is no restaurant. There is nothing to do with food in Tiffany. It was a disillusioning moment. And so, anyway, let's look at this classic moment from Breakfast at Tiffany's. Okay, 5 questions. First question, what is Audrey Hepburn nibbling on? Not a croissant. Danish. It's a Danish. And actually, in truth, this scene, that little 2-minute scene, the opening credits, took 12 hours to shoot because she had a lot of issues with eating and the retakes, which is really difficult. They usually give you a little bit of food, something that when they're doing films with food, what they do is, because they have continuity, sometimes it can take hours and hours. So they have a plate of food, and they tell the actors, this part is just going to stay stationary. Don't touch it, because the camera angles will always show that you've got this pile of peas. Because you can't have 1 second you've got a salad, and another second you don't have a salad, then you have a salad, then you have a tomato, and then there's usually some little part on the plate that you can eat. That's something that you can tolerate, mashed cauliflower or whatever. But for this one, she had to eat this Danish, and it was just so difficult because she didn't want to eat it and spit it out. And anyway, it took 12 hours. Okay, second question. What actress was originally suggested to play Holly Golightly? Marilyn Monroe. Yes. But her drama coach, Lee Strasberg, said, playing a kind of sort of prostitute is a little too on the nose, and so he recommended that she maybe not do that one. Now, this movie was based on a book by, I heard it over there, Truman Capote. What did I say? Book is different than a novel. What's the song? The opening credit song? Moon River. Extra postcard. It's not even on my list. I'm going to put it on my list. Who played Holly Golightly's Japanese neighbor? Mickey Rooney. The worst casting I've ever seen in my life, hands down. Okay. Now, sometimes food can be used, as I mentioned, as a kind of shortcut to sort of give a bigger theme. And one movie that I liked, I don't have the film clip, but just to get you thinking about this, is Terminal with Tom Hanks and Catherine Zeta-Jones, where this guy is stuck in an airport because of political passport reasons. And so he's got no money, and he's literally stuck there. And so at first he just sort of takes ketchup and improvises how to feed himself and the things that are free. And then he figures out how to get a little money by returning carts, and he buys a little food. Then he figures out how to get a job and how to create a beautiful formal dinner for her, never leaving. And it's kind of the American story of when people come to America at how they're starving and how the creativity and the improvisation and then the ability to kind of create things here is so wonderful. So it's a little microcosm for America. The next film snippet I love because it shows a film that talks as a social commentary about the inflexibility, about the stupidity sometimes of rigid rules and bureaucracy. So the next snippet is from a movie, 5 Easy Pieces.
Come back when you make up your mind. Wait a minute. I have made up my mind. I'd like a plain omelet, no potatoes on the plate, a cup of coffee, and a side order of wheat toast.
I'm sorry, we don't have any side orders of toast. English muffin or a coffee roll.
What do you mean? You don't make side orders of toast. You make sandwiches, don't you?
Would you like to talk to the manager? Hey, Matt.
Shut up. You've got bread and a toaster of some kind?
I don't make the rules.
Okay, I'll make it as easy for you as I can. I'd like an omelet, plain, and a chicken salad sandwich on wheat toast. No mayonnaise, no butter, no lettuce, and a cup of coffee.
Number 2, chicken salad sandwich. Bowl of butter, the lettuce, the mayonnaise, and a cup of coffee. Anything else?
Yeah, now all you have to do is hold the chicken, bring me the toast, give me a check for the chicken salad sandwich, and you haven't broken any rules.
You want me to hold the chicken, huh?
I want you to hold it between your knees.
You see that sign, sir?
So that was voted one of the 100 most famous American film clips. So the title, 5 Easy Pieces, what does it refer to? Piano. It's a beginner's piano book because the character Jack Nicholson, Bobby, is a pianist. Speaking of Jack, within 5 years, how old is he in this film? Uh-oh. Wait, who said 32? Did somebody say 32? 32 because he was 33. Okay, so in there, we have some more postcards. We'll replenish the postcard supply. Now, while we're getting the postcards, there are the postcards of the Dolce book. When you find them, and you can just give them. Otherwise, because we can tear one in half if you. Oh, we've got them. Okay, great. So now we're going to see another foodie film snippet that I particularly love. It's called Big Night. It's a 1995 movie that's all about food, and for me it represents the artistic ideal, the restaurateur versus the chef who wants to make the most perfect things versus the restaurant business part of the restaurant that says, I need to make money. So Big Night refers to the fact that this restaurant is waiting for this famous person to come. Then that'll be their big night, and it'll make them famous and make money. Who were they waiting for? Louis Prima, the great jazz musician. And who knows the name of that dish? Timballo. Whoever said it over there somewhere, timballo, which is this pasta pie. It can be 3 feet high. And I was trying to quickly show you this little thing that he was cutting little squares, and then he would roll them against this little wooden square thing. It's called a petina. It's it's a special little wooden thing with grooves that makes just little lines when you roll the pasta into a little circle. So this is a labor-intensive dish. You're making the pasta by hand. Each one of them is a complicated thing, and you made the dough and then filling it with eggs and meatballs and cheese. It is used at holiday times in Italy. Who are some of the stars of the film? Stanley Tucci. Wait. Who said? Tony Shalhoub, and who said Schreiber? Schreiber, and Isabella Rossellini. Excellent. Okay, now, food and what a character eats kind of can show personality, like I mentioned with Shrek, somebody mentioned the Breakfast Club, where these kids in the Breakfast Club all get together because of detention, and they have to spend the whole day in detention. And you see from the beginning they totally are not at all friendly, don't know each other, and you can sort of see it in their food is so diverse. And then by the end of the day, by the end of the detention, they've kind of come to know each other. And so what I like in the next film clip is that you really see personality, and more you see differences between two personalities. And so the film clip is from Annie Hall, where we see Woody Allen's two different girlfriends and the amazing difference between them.
Definitely in the pot. Annie, there's a big lobster behind the refrigerator. I can't get it out. This thing's heavy. Maybe if I put a little dish of butter sauce here with a nutcracker and run out the other side. It's all quick, go get a broom.
What are you making such a big deal about? They're only lobsters. You're a grown man. You know how to pick up a lobster.
I'm not myself since I stopped smoking.
When did you quit smoking?
16 years ago. Me?
So clearly a big difference between when your girlfriend gets you and when she doesn't. I've broken something. So Woody Allen wrote this movie with a particular actress in mind. Diane Keaton. He a friend, and he purposefully wrote it kind of thinking that she would just be ideal. Now, just as a little aside, Diane Keaton's real life name is Diane Hall, and her real life nickname is Annie. So it's kind of a reason that he made that name. What now famous actress made her debut in that film? Sigourney Weaver? Did you say that? Yes, you are polite with the hand and you got it right. Sigourney Weaver, she played, it was almost a non-speaking part as one of his girlfriends, and that was her first appearance in a film. Now, the next clip is from the movie Big. Who stars in Big? No postcard, everybody knows that one. Too easy, okay. And his character is, it's a story about this kid who wants to be big, who wants to grow up, and he makes a wish to be big. And so Tom Hanks is the big version of the kid. What is the job he gets? A toy inventor, right. He gets a job as a toy inventor, which is so perfect for a kid that's gotten big. Now, this movie really was supposed to be directed by a very famous Hollywood director. Does anybody know who was initially slotted? Spielberg. Spielberg was supposed to be the director, but they thought that it would take away attention from his sister, Anne Spielberg, who co-wrote the film. So what female Penny Marshall ended up directing the film? Penny Marshall, the person who had been on the Laverne and Shirley, and went on. Now, she, interestingly, this is a female director, and this film became the highest grossing film for a female director when it earned $100 million. So we can see a snippet from a foodie scene in Big.
So I show him the schedule, and he says it's not correct accounting procedure. Goddamn. But the toy sold, Paul. Excuse me.
Hi. All of the same people having all the same discussion. Like they cloned some party in 1983. Kept spinning it out again and again and again. I loved your ideas on the squeezy doll line.
Thanks.
So incisive. Blew them. McMillan orders it every year.
Anybody who has a kid can relate to this. Tom Hanks apparently did follow around the counterpart star for a few days to kind of just get down the gestures and mannerisms, and I think he got them right. I can't go to a Chinese restaurant anymore and see a corn in one of those stir-fried dishes without laughing. I love that. Now, the next movie clip is from $1 Million Baby. Who was the director? Clint Eastwood. And how many movies has Clint Eastwood directed within 5? Wait, who said 29? First of all, are you an accountant? He did that very systematically. Did you notice he started and he did the increments in a very good... Are you an accountant? Oh, no. Give him an extra cannoli. Give him some chocolate mint ice cream. Did you get all the yummy tasting things? You want more? Are you hungry? So he directed 30 films. How many films has he acted in, Clint Eastwood? No, not that. 112, 72, a little too much. 55 is close. 58 is close. It's 60. So this short, it's a really, really short little snippet because I just love how he just quickly uses kind of a little thing that she does with food to kind of show her character, where she came from, her background. So this is $1 Million Baby. This is his 25th movie. Just that little small lie and just showing what she would do, I think is a very poignant little moment. Okay, so the next film clip is considered to be one of the top 100 most important films in American culture. The food scene is very subtle, so you have to watch carefully. Discreet and very subtle. Wait for the Jell-O. I didn't ask the questions yet. So, of course, I'm gonna do weird questions. So, what happened after the release of this film is that toga parties became all the craze in all kinds of universities across the country. And interestingly, at first they were going to film this in the University of Missouri, and then they did it in the University of Oregon. After the other university saw the script, they were like, no, not here. What actor made his film debut in this? Kevin Bacon, who's married to Kyra Sedgwick, who for a little while there, Kyra Sedgwick, because of The Closer, became more famous than he was. Now, food, as I mentioned, is used in film by filmmakers to sort of set a time period. Gone with the Wind, I mentioned Age of Innocence, Titanic. And the next scenes are from the Middle Ages. One of them is from Robin Hood. And what I like, because the Middle Ages is kind of such a fascinating time period for food, I particularly like it. And I also like, I'm going to show you two Middle Ages movies that are supposed to be set in the Middle Ages and showing you another cinematic difference between them. But what I love is that I see in the film that the directors looked at some Middle Ages cookbooks, because there's like little details on the table of how they drape the garland and just little details about how they carry out platters that I know that they looked through and found some of these references. The other thing I like is that you see in the early film, Robin Hood with Errol Flynn, that it's got to be really bright, and you got sparkles on his clothes because they couldn't do a candlelit room. And yet, in the film after that, Knight's Tale, you see how it can be just so dim. So let's see this this first little snippet from Robin Hood. I like the sequins.
Highness, you know, you should really teach Gisborne hospitality. I no sooner enter his castle doors there with a piece of meat than his starving servants try to snatch it from him. You should feed them, Gisborne, they'll work better.
One of the things historically is that in England you weren't allowed to hunt for deer unless you owned the land. And so the symbol of a deer would be first only allowed by nobility. And it was kind of him rubbing his nose in the face that he took this deer from their land. But I love the tights and I love the sequins. Errol Flynn was not the first actor that they had wanted for the film. Who knows the first actor that was really supposed to play Robin Hood? Clark Gable would be kind of what you'd hope when you look at Errol Flynn and you think tights. But it's an actor that you really would not think should have an English accent. You really wouldn't think should be wearing green tights. I agree with you, but that's not the guy. It's a guy we saw early. What'd you say? James Cagney. Could you imagine? Did you say it too, both of you? You said, whoever said first. Okay, James Cagney was supposed to be playing this role. Now we'll see Knight's Tale, another time period piece that just a little snippet to just see that different dining scene. And what I like is just that I know the book that they copied from the 1400s that has this way that they would bring in the food that looked like it's on a gurney from an emergency room. And that whole table setting is illustrated in a book, including all the ways, if you watch the movie, what's really only worth watching to watch all the scenes that have good food representation. They show how they make the pyramids of fruit and just put out pretty platters. Back in those days, they liked to kind of build big sculptures where they would advise you to take a big, thick branch of rosemary and then dangle cherries over the rosemary as a centerpiece for a salad. Another time period that has been so many movies about are Westerns. And almost all, they make fun of the chuck wagon cooks. They make fun of coffee, like in The Wild Bunch, there's that line. He used to kill a lot of people, now he does it just with the coffee. And the only thing is, I just really cannot talk about food and film without a little bit of gross and without a little bit of something a little offensive. How can we not talk about the bean scene in Blazing Saddles? You have to forgive me, but the bean scene. Not much, but just enough. Now, initially, in 1930, there was a Western called Cimarron, which won an Oscar. And then it took 60 years for another Western-themed movie to win an Oscar. We had a 60-year gap of no Western ever won Best Picture. Who knows, after Cimarron, Dances with Wolves. Did you say it too? Okay, so she said it for sure, and back there who thought it was first because the sound didn't come up here. It's Dances with Wolves. And you can't talk about Westerns unless you talk about John Wayne, who started making films in 1928, but didn't win an Oscar until 1969. For what film? True Grit. I heard a million people say it exactly at the same time, including right here, True Grit. And when he accepted the Oscar, he said, if I had known that all it took was this, I would have put an eye patch on a long time ago. He was nominated twice before for extra credit. Does anybody know? What'd you say? Nope. That one, let's raise our hand, because let's raise our hand for those. Nope. Sands of Iwo Jima is one. 49 he was nominated but didn't get it. One more, a 1960 film. The Alamo, did you say? Alamo. So the Alamo and Sands of Iwo Jima, but he didn't win. Now, war, as I mentioned, is a huge category where we make fun of the food. So Catch-22, Caught in the Draft, Good Morning Vietnam. And here's a quick little snippet from Neil Simon's Biloxi Blues, starring Christopher Walken and Matthew Broderick.
Not bad. Just takes off pepper, ketchup, and mustard, that's all. Now drop this stuff over Germany, the entire country will come out with their hands up.
So those Neil Simon, one-liners. Okay, so in a little Oscar history, who was the first? Put your hand up for this. Who was the first actor to refuse the Oscar? Yes, in the back. No, it was everyone forgets this other guy. Another one? Yes? No? George C. Scott. For Patton. He said, I don't want an Oscar. I don't like this idea of competing with my fellow performers. What movie set in World War II has the toast, "Here's looking at you, kid"? You guys decide where I heard. I kind of heard it from that side, I thought, but you guys decide. Now, just as an aside, you know that Play It Again, Sam, that Woody Allen sort of playing around with the line. The line is really, you played it for her, you can play it for me. Play it, Sam. He didn't exactly say play it again, Sam. Anyway, so we've hit on some fun food films with some interesting food scenes, but there's a whole nother category of disgusting food moments. So The Silence of Lambs, The Fly, Super Size Me. I'm going to tell you the film. You tell me the yucky food that was in it. Papillon. What? A grub or an insect, a roach he eats. What was the food, the disgusting food that was supposed to be eaten in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Rat. We're out again? Okay, so you rip something in half that we can... but that you don't have already. Soylent Green. I heard it in the back first. Now, here's a film snippet from something that I find gross. For some reason, I can't even look at this. He really drinks it. It's not a stunt man. Is it over? Can I look? Okay. However, in the voting for the most disgusting food moment, what? I didn't hear. That definitely one of them. And another one that I find sort of upsetting and can't look at, but that's funny, is Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. So the Mr. Creosote moment, which is why we had the mint ice cream. Did everybody have a little bit of that mint chocolate ice cream? Because of the mint reference, wafer thin. Anyway, this is, at the end of this Mr. Creosote scene, I want you to look, there's an actor sort of on the side that's throwing up. That's actually an actor throwing up. He got so sick because the smell of whatever they were using and just the sounds, he actually got sick and threw up. And they were going to reject they had actually cut it, but then John Cleese looked at it again and said, "This is really funny. It's disgusting but funny. We've got to keep it." So a disgusting film moment. when I have to go on a diet, I play this scene and actually watch it. Okay, let's get this out of our mind and let's think of some yummy food movies. So things like Eat, Drink, Man, Woman. Tortilla Soup is the equivalent. Eat, Drink, Man, Woman is about is set in Asia, and the chef loses his sense of smell. A chef who can't smell, but it shows cooking for your family. Tortilla Soup is set here in the States. It's got Raquel Welch, and it's about wonderful Mexican food. Sideways has lots of wonderful wine, although it almost put out the Merlot business. Like Water for Chocolate, Tom Jones, as I mentioned. So okay, but the classic, the one that everybody's mentioned a million times, Babette's Feast, which was, everybody's seen it? We sort of reference it so much, but it's a charming story about a wonderful French chef who starts to work for a family that in a town that's not such a foodie town, and this family gives so much money to charity. They do so much help for others, so philanthropic, but they want everything plain, just white food, just give me a boiled potato. And so this wonderful cook has all her talent wasted, and then she gets an inheritance. And how does she want to use it? She wants to make a fabulous dinner for them. And you're going to see just a little snippet, a moment of it. And what, if you can see it with this reproduction, what the filmmaker specifically did was he had the people that are dining start with very pale makeup and then have their cheeks get rosier and rosier as they drink more wine and as they eat more of this wonderful food. So Babette's Feast, which is a 1987 film but set in 19th century Denmark. Isn't that the best sound in the world? Now, there are lots of films that show ethnicity differences. So weird things, aliens and different things that they eat, or things like Daryl Hannah in Splash, who eats a whole crab the way that a mermaid would. Or in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, I mentioned about just using that to kind of quickly show two differences in cultures. And there are dozens of homey film scenes in mafia pictures like The Godfather and like Goodfellas. In Goodfellas, you have a scene where there's this brutal killing, and then they go right off to have dinner with mom, very, very sweet and nice. Or you've got the scene in prison where he slices sort of menacingly almost a garlic with a razor to be so thin that it'll just dissolve in the olive oil. In this Italian food sensibility, that idea that food equals love is something that you see often, or that the food means that there's a human part in it. And so in the next film clip, we're going to just see a little snippet from Moonstruck. And the famous foodie line, snap out of it, is listed as number 96 out of the 100 most famous food lines. So we'll see a little snippet from Moonstruck.
What's that smell? I don't want it. I like it well done.
Bloody beach blood.
Who plays Cher's mother? Who said Olivia Dukakis over, or both? Who said it first? Over there, volunteers. Can we rip something? They won't let you rip anything? Wait, should I give you something to rip that I only have? A slip? Okay, give him something. So Olympia Dukakis, who's only really actually 15 years older than Cher, so Cher, but magic of filmmaking. There was a kind of an opera theme going throughout. What was one of the main opera? La Bohème was the main, Puccini's La Bohème. That was, are we gonna break something? We don't have anything? We have anything special that I can, from my bag, that we can, anybody wearing a slip we can take off? Okay, wait, here, how about we rip off pieces of this that are only my special piece of paper, little strips. Okay, the La Bohème gets one, because that's hard. Now, what Broadway playwright wrote Moonstruck? Finally, this audience never gets stumped. That's why I've run out of postcards. In other places, I never run out of postcards. I do this talk all the time. Okay, finally, hooray. Okay, so a little hint. It's a Broadway playwright. He won a Pulitzer Prize for the play Doubt. Hooray. Oh, I was almost going to stump you. John Patrick Shanley. Did you Google that? That does not count. That does not count. Does that count? I love it. I love it. But technology, I mean, I don't know. It's up to you. Okay. Our final film clip is a riff on all the idea that characters who can't cook are inferior. So things like Mrs. Doubtfire and Kramer versus Kramer was showing a kind of negative. You can't cook, it means you're not a good mom. A kind of retro way of thinking. And here in this film, in Bridget Jones' Diary, it shows that she can't cook, and it's okay. We'll end with Bridget Jones' Diary.
Finely sliced oranges and great zest. Where the fuck is the fucking tuna? It's pretty good. Searching for tuna. How's it look?
Great. It's, blue.
Blue?
No, but blue is good. If you ask me, there isn't enough blue.
Oh shit. It must have been string.
No, it's strings.
It'll be here any minute.
Don't worry, I'm sure it's enough to see you and not orange parfait and sugar cakes. Have a drink.
Yes.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I like that positive theme of you're great just the way you are. And so I think that that's always a nice place for us to end. You're terrific just the way you are. I want to thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience and being so enthusiastic at guessing. It has been a delight being here and a wonderful pleasure to be part of this terrific film festival. So now the next thing, thank you very much. The next thing we'll do is count up the cards. So let's call out who's got, more than 8. Who gets the first prize? What, you gonna lie to me if it's not good? Oh, it's a large box of baci, which are imported Italian chocolates that are filled with a hazelnut ganache and a whole hazelnut and coated with chocolate. They're yummy. And then the second, third, and fourth prizes are smaller boxes of baci. So baci means kisses in Italian. So who's the first prize winner? Who has the most? How many? 12. Does anybody have more than 12? You have 13? Does anybody have more than 13? Okay, so 13 is first prize, 12 second. Congratulations. Who's got 11 and 10? Who's got 11? 10? 8, third prize. Last one, 7, 6. 6? Anybody else have 6? You have 6 too? Oh my goodness, what do we do? She got 11. Okay, wait a minute. So we got 13 was number 1, 12 number 2, number 3, 11. Okay, at the end, everybody come who thinks that they have the most, and we'll sort it out. Bring your postcards. We've got 4 winners. Florida is very complicated. New York, we're rowdy, but you guys are very calculating. There's a lot of accountants here. We have a little time for a couple of questions if anybody has a question. Yes. Indiana Jones is terrific. I switch out some things sometimes to not, because the monkey head scene, right? Isn't that disgusting? Where she falls over. So I do have about 20 films, because what is fabulous when I do these talks is that the audience will sometimes suggest things that I would have forgotten about or not even known about in the whole first place. And so I love hearing suggestions. And I've kept a big master list. And that's why if anybody wants to follow, see every foodie film on Netflix, I'll let you know, but definitely Indiana Jones would be in the disgusting. I agree with you. Yes? The Ritz, Harrison Ford and Annette Bening and the Ritz crackers. We'll put that on the list too. Yes? Yeah, I try to at least mention, so I think I've got that down there as some, but there are so many. You can always email me through the back of these multiple postcards that some people have. My website is my name, francinesegan.com, and either I'll send you my wonderful list of 100 foodie films that have a little synopsis, and if when you get that you don't see the film that you love on it, let me know, so then I'll add it for the future. So are there any other questions? Yeah. The question is, how did I start? I'm a food historian. How did I get started in that? It's an interesting question. I was really, by training, a child psychologist. And I like to cook. I'm Italian. I like to cook for fun. And my husband is a theater producer, and so he liked to have celebrity friends that would come over so we could talk privately and be just alone in my house. And so I would sometimes cook a theme to whatever show they were in to kind of be funny or fun. And Mark Lynn Baker, an actor, was performing with Gwyneth Paltrow in As You Like It. And Mark actually said, Francine, you have to do an Elizabethan dinner. Do something with Shakespeare. And I said, I'm Italian. What am I going to do of English food? Overcook a lamb chop? Boil peas? So I went to the library, and I thought I would just spend an hour and get a book, look up in the microfilm and get a book. In those days, they only had it on microfilm, on what would they have done in 1596 when they did As You Like It. And I found this cookbook that was so fascinating. I sat there for days and days and days. I got the menu and did it, but I learned so many things. And so what I did is little writings for every one of the guests to read, because I figured they're actors, they'll embellish. So they came to my house and did this dinner. I had no electricity, just candles, no fork. They didn't have forks in Shakespeare's time until 1620. Then one actor told somebody, and someone at Random House called me and said, would you like to do a book on that dinner? And so I got this wonderful, wonderful opportunity to weave in all the things from the dinner party, including that cookbooks back in 1500s, they had recipes and they were delicious, interesting food, but the more fun thing that I discovered was that they had books of jokes that you were supposed to tell at dinner. They would explain in these books of etiquette how to behave. For example, don't put your elbows on the table. Why? Because in those days, the table wasn't stationary. It could flip over. It was just a piece of wood on sawhorses. And so they would say, also, when you go to dinner, somebody's going to cook for you. What are you going to do? Sit there and just eat? You have to entertain your fellow guests. And they said, here's some jokes that are very interesting to tell at dinner. And I'm sitting in the New York Public Library at 42nd Street in the reserved special room with the wood paneling, and it's very dark so it doesn't hurt the ink. And I took out this book that I had looked up that they had in the original form. It wasn't even on microfilm. It was so scarce. And I'm reading it, and I'm starting to laugh hysterically. The 3 special librarians come scurrying over to me, and I think they're going to yell at me because I'm being noisy. And I apologized. They said, no, we're curious. We see that as you're turning the pages, you're laughing. So we looked up what book you're looking at, because nobody laughs in this room. And we saw that you're reading a book that's under our cookery collection, and it hasn't been taken out since 1907. What are you laughing at? I said, I'm laughing at jokes. Look at number 17. This is hilarious, and they're numbered. And all I'm thinking as I'm reading these is Henny Youngman came here and got his material. The joke that particularly made them run over to me, and it was really because the image of Henny Youngman sitting there that made it was, don't forget, this is 1512. And the joke goes, there's a ship at sea. Suddenly there's a storm. The captain runs to the deck and says, please, please, who can throw something overboard? A man raises his hand and said, I can, my wife. I mean, really, we've been making fun of wives since 1503. And so that's how I got started. From that dinner party, I got the opportunity to do one book, and then from the one book, I did 2 more with Random House, one about the food of ancient Greece and Rome, then one on the food and movies, and then more and more. Yes? 3 favorite food movies, if I could only list 3. Right now, I think that we have to, just for historic sake, put Babette's Feast. I think that, I think that Ratatouille, for me, really, I thought was so touching. Even though it was a stupid cartoon, I actually cried. It was a cartoon. And then I think that Julie and Julia, I really liked, because Julie and Julia, if you don't know, that movie was about this blogger who didn't like her job, and so she wanted to kind of just blog about this Julia Child classic cookbook by making a recipe or 2. You have to see about 500 recipes in the book, but in 1 year, and then blog about it. She became incredibly famous about it, and then they did a film, which is a lovely arc of showing Julia Child developing her interest in food and studying in France, and then the blogger. So those are my 3 favorites. But there are so many, they change every week.
We have time for one more question.
Favorite food and are you a wine guy or a beer guy? Oh, I know. That's because I do pizza and beer. In Italy, I spent about half the year in Italy. I did a book last year on dessert, and I'm doing one that's coming out in October on pasta. And so I had to suffer and stay in Italy and eat. Oh, I know, what a life. Somebody has to do it. And so what I learned that I start now loving is in Italy, they never have wine and pizza. They have beer and pizza. And so that's definitely up there as one of my favorite pairings. I love that kind of really almost a sourdough dough, the dough that's really been mother-proofed, and so it's sort of chewy, like from Naples, and an ice-cold beer in the summertime. That's one of my favorite pairings. And then I fell in love with pasta doing this book, so another carb. And then with wine, I love red wine. And I like the red wines of Piedmont, like Barolo, a nice heavy wine with a good thick meat sauce, something that's been slow cooked. My 2 favorites. Although I'm open to other things, if you have any in your picnic baskets, I will try them for you. Thank you again so much. It was such an honor being here. This is a fabulous facility. You're so lucky, and you've been a delight. I really had a wonderful time. Thank you.